2,000 years apart, two different worlds, two men who had everything to live for, and yet both chose death over silence. One stood before the rulers of Athens, the other before the governor of Rome. Both were offered a way out, both refused. Why? Because they understood something that most people never will. Truth is not something you believe, it is something you die for. Today, we're going to walk through the final hours, the forbidden ideas, and the eternal legacy of two men who shook civilization to its core. Socrates Truth Death. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why their deaths were not tragedies. They were the most powerful acts of defiance in human history. As Kierkegaard once reflected, the tyrant dies and his rule is over. The martyr dies and his rule begins. So let's begin where it all started, not with their deaths, but with the dangerous questions they dared to ask. The gadfly of Athens. Athens, 399 BC, the golden age of democracy, a city that prided itself on freedom of thought. And yet, in the heart of this free city, a 70-year-old man stood on trial for the crime of thinking too much. Socrates never wrote a single word. He owned nothing. He held no political office. His only weapon was a question. He would walk through the streets of Athens, approach the most powerful men in the city, politicians, generals, wealthy merchants, and ask them one simple thing. Do you truly understand what you claim to know? And every single time their certainty crumbled. The politicians couldn't define justice. The generals couldn't define courage. The poets couldn't explain their own art. Socrates exposed the terrifying truth that the people running society didn't actually understand anything. He called himself a gadfly, a tiny insect that stings a lazy horse to keep it moving. Athens was the horse, and Socrates kept stinging. The unexamined life is not worth living. But here's the thing about gadflies. Eventually the horse gets tired of being stung, and that's exactly what happened next. The carpenter's son. Now travel forward 400 years, a different empire, a different world. In a dusty corner of the Roman Empire, in a village so insignificant that people joked nothing good could come from it, a carpenter's son began to speak, and his words hit like an earthquake. Jesus of Nazareth didn't target philosophers or intellectuals. He went straight to the people everyone else had forgotten: the poor, the sick, the outcasts, the sinners. Everyone. He told them something no religious leader had ever said before, that God wasn't found in temples or rituals or sacrifices. God was found in the broken, in the meek, in the merciful, in those who hunger for righteousness. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. This was revolutionary. In a world built on power, domination, and hierarchy, Jesus flipped everything upside down. The last shall be first. The greatest among you must be a servant. If this ancient wisdom is stirring something in you right now, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of human wisdom with me. Because what comes next reveals why both of these men became the most dangerous people alive. And it wasn't because they carried swords. Dangerous questions. Here's what connected these two men across centuries. Neither Socrates nor Jesus offered answers in the way people expected. They asked questions. Socrates used what we now call the Socratic method. He never told anyone what to think. Instead, he asked question after question until people realized their own beliefs were built on sand. Questions destroy illusions. Jesus did something remarkably similar. When the Pharisees tried to trap him with loaded questions, he didn't argue. He told parables, stories so simple a child could understand them, yet so deep that scholars still debate their meaning 2,000 years later. When asked who your neighbor is, he told the story of the Good Samaritan, a member of a despised group who showed more compassion than any priest or Levite. He forced people to question everything they thought they knew about morality. Both men understood the same terrifying principle. The moment you make people question their assumptions, you become dangerous. Not dangerous like a warrior, dangerous like a mirror, because a mirror shows you what you don't want to see, and powerful people will do anything to break a mirror that reflects their ugliness. Enemies of power. Now let's talk about the real reason they were killed. It wasn't their ideas. Ideas alone don't get you executed. It was who those ideas threatened. In Athens, Socrates had humiliated the city's most powerful men in public. He had shown their students that their fathers and leaders were frauds. The charge, corrupting the youth and introducing new gods. But everyone knew the real accusation. You made us look like fools, and we will never forgive you. In Jerusalem, Jesus had done something even more provocative. He had walked into the temple, the center of religious and economic power, and overturned the tables of the money changers. He called the religious leaders hypocrites to their faces. He told the common people that they didn't need priests or institutions to reach God. Think about what that means. He was dismantling an entire system of control. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Roman authorities, they all saw the same thing. a man who could make people stop obeying. And that is the one thing no empire can survive. But this leads us to something even more profound about both of their trials. The trials. The trials of Socrates and Jesus are two of the most important moments in human history, and they are terrifyingly similar. Socrates stood before 500 Athenian jurors. He was offered a simple deal: stop philosophizing, stop asking questions, apologize, and you can live. His response: if you offered to let me go on condition that I stop philosophizing, I would say, I shall obey God rather than you. He chose death over silence. Now look at Jesus. Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, found no crime in him. He even tried to release him. The crowd demanded crucifixion. Jesus could have denied his teachings. He could have recanted. He could have said it was all a misunderstanding. Silence, defiance, truth. Instead, when Pilate asked if he was the king of the Jews, Jesus answered with devastating calm. For this purpose I was born, and for this I came into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Both men were given an exit. Both men refused it, not because they wanted to die, but because they understood that a life purchased by betraying truth is not a life worth living. And what happened next proved them right beyond anything they could have imagined. Choosing death. The way they died tells you everything about who they were. Socrates was sentenced to drink hemlock, a poison that slowly paralyzes the body from the feet upward. His friends were weeping. They had arranged for him to escape. A ship was waiting. He could have fled to another city and lived out his days in comfort. He refused. On his final day, he spent hours calmly discussing the nature of the soul with his students. Death is either a dreamless sleep or a journey to meet the great minds of the past. Then he took the cup, drank it, and walked around until his legs grew heavy. His last words were to his friend Crito. Crito, we owe a rooster to Asclepius. Pay it and do not neglect it. A final act of duty. Even in death, he paid his debts. Jesus died on a cross, one of the most brutal forms of execution ever invented, nailed through his wrists and feet, suffocating slowly under his own weight. Forgiveness. And yet his words from the cross were not curses. They were prayers. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. 2 deaths, one by poison, one by cross, both chosen freely, both transforming weakness into the most powerful statement the world had ever seen. Truth over comfort. Now here is where this gets personal, because the question isn't really about Jesus and Socrates. The question is about you. Every single day you face a smaller version of their choice, not between life and death, but between truth and comfort. Truth, comfort, choice. Think about it. How many times have you stayed silent when you knew something was wrong? How many times have you agreed with the crowd because disagreeing felt too risky? How many times have you betrayed what you actually believed just to keep the peace? Socrates warned us about this exact trap. He said most people live in a kind of sleep. They go through life never questioning, never examining, never waking up. The greatest prison is a life lived trying to make everyone comfortable except yourself. And Jesus said something even more cutting. He said that the truth will set you free, but what nobody mentions is the full context. Before freedom comes confrontation. Before liberation comes loss. Truth doesn't make your life easier. It makes your life real. And that's a trade most people are too afraid to make. But what if there's a way to live with that courage without it destroying you? The death paradox. Here is the great paradox that both men understood. The people who killed them thought they were eliminating a threat. They thought that by silencing the voice, they could silence the idea. They could not have been more catastrophically wrong. Within decades of Socrates' death, his student Plato founded the Academy, the first university in the Western world. Plato's student Aristotle tutored Alexander the Great. Socratic philosophy became the foundation of Western thought, science, logic, democracy, ethics. All of it traces back to a man who was executed for asking uncomfortable questions. They killed the man, but they immortalized the idea. And Jesus, within 3 centuries of his crucifixion, the Roman Empire that executed him adopted his teachings as its official religion. The cross, an instrument of torture, became the most recognized symbol on earth. 2 billion people follow his teachings today. Their enemies gave them the one thing they could never have achieved alive: immortality. What we do in life echoes in eternity. And that brings us to the final lesson, the one that changes everything. Living truth. So what does this mean for your life right now? You don't have to drink hemlock, you don't have to carry a cross, but you do have to make a choice that both Socrates and Jesus made every single day before their deaths, the choice to live authentically. Socrates didn't become a martyr overnight. For decades, he simply showed up. He asked his questions. He spoke his truth. He refused to pretend that ignorance was wisdom. One question what everyone accepts blindly. 2. Speak truth even when your voice shakes. 3. Choose meaning over comfort. 4. Stand firm when the crowd turns against you. Jesus didn't start on the cross. He started in small villages, having honest conversations, healing the broken, challenging the corrupt, day after day, year after year. Daily courage compounds. The grand sacrifice only had meaning because it was built on thousands of small, daily acts of truth. And that's the secret nobody tells you about living with integrity. It's not one heroic moment. It's 1,000 quiet ones. It's every time you choose honesty over approval. Every time you stand alone because sitting down would mean giving up who you are. What legacy will your daily choices build? Eternal echoes. 2 men 2,000 years apart, different cultures, different languages, different gods, and yet they arrived at the same conclusion. A life without truth is not a life at all. Socrates proved that wisdom begins with admitting you know nothing. Jesus proved that love is stronger than any empire. Both proved that you cannot kill an idea whose time has come. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice. And here is what haunts me. In their final moments, neither of them showed fear, neither showed anger, neither showed regret. They showed peace, because they knew something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Truth. That the only real death is the death of your integrity. The only real prison is a life lived in lies. And the only real freedom, the kind that no government, no mob, no executioner can ever take from you, is the freedom to speak what you know to be true. Speak live, die free. The question isn't whether Jesus or Socrates was right. The question is whether you have the courage to live the way they did, not perfectly, not without fear, but honestly, truly, fully. 2 men stood before the most powerful institutions of their time. Both were offered survival in exchange for silence. Both refused, and in refusing they proved something that echoes through every century since. That truth is not a concept. It is a commitment. A daily, difficult, sometimes devastating commitment to seeing clearly and speaking honestly. To thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. You will not be asked to drink hemlock, you will not be asked to carry a cross, but you will be asked every single day in 100 small ways whether you will choose comfort or truth, whether you will follow the crowd or follow your conscience. The wisdom of Socrates and Jesus lives in every brave word you dare to speak. If you made it this far, comment hemlock and cross to prove you're among those who choose truth over comfort. Wisdom Vault Unlocked. The wisdom of the ages is yours. Use it well. If this unlocks something in you, hit like and subscribe. The vault has more. Comment below which thinker changed your life.